Hi everyone, and welcome to a new installment of Let's Build. This is a series of tutorials on the use of the Neverwinter Nights 2 toolset using a project of mine called Moonstone, which is in its very early stages. The current video is focusing on exterior area creation. Covered already issues like terrain moulding, water placement, placeable objects, and that's kind of where we pick up from. As you'll recall in previous videos, we placed quite a few buildings down and other objects, and carrying on in that vein off camera, I've added quite a few other buildings down to form what is looking to be the final or general or nearly final layout of this small fishing community and sort of trading post as well. So it's not in a massive place, and indeed some of the buildings in the back row there are actually not even going to be accessible. They're just going to be sort of background dressing. But for those who've been following the videos, you can see that I've added these buildings in. I've got a little outer wall in because the player will kind of enter the area around here. So yes, these houses on the top cliff here won't be accessible. So you've got a path coming down here. We have the inn and the passage underneath the inn. Running through there and then coming down. I'm just going to give us a little bit more room here. We come down onto a sort of a promenade section where we have rows of houses along the side there, which will be more placeable detail. We'll go into these at a later date. So life is a certain shop, then we'll have relevant things, you know, sitting areas and whatnot. Probably some tables outside the inn, for example. Blacksmith, for example, has already had a bit of work done to him, just because I got a bit carried away while I was detailing and started putting lights and effects in as well. But as you can see, we have a blacksmith on the edge here, even with a nice sign as well I found lying around in the placeable cornucopia. So it's amazing what you can find in there. And on the shore, I've added quite a lot of sort of things like rock detail in, goods that have been unloaded, that kind of thing, and out to sea we have some of the ships as well. So that's where we stand. I said I think the high details, I like to call it the fine detail of placeables, I tend to do after I've done what I'd call a basic texturing. So normally 2 to 3 different base texture colours, the main ones will get in, and then we're going to fine placeable detail, or even adding that as we add things of importance. And then around that fine placeable detail we do fine texturing detail as well. And that's how I approach it, and I'm sure there are other ways of doing it as well. So yes, texturing, that's where we're going to start in this video. And first off, I've got some rough idea of the textures I want to use, but that may be subject to change because, as you may have figured in previous videos, I am very changeable myself. So on your tabs with blueprints, tiles and terrain, we want the terrain tab, and we're going to click on texturing. And looking at here, you have the standard sort of brush settings, which we'll come back to. And then for the terrain, we've got a list here of all the different textures available to us. Quite a few, as you can see, more than enough to get what we want. And down at the bottom here in the selection section is a summary of how many textures we have in use on a particular mega tile. So as you can see at the minute, if I take it off screen on the left there, my cursor is now on the left, there are no textures selected in the selection box on the bottom right there. Now if I move my cursor just onto a mega tile, we'll see that on this particular mega tile, let me turn the grid on. Mega tile that you see there, if I get actually right on top, the mega tile is that black square here. And yes, on the selection we have dirt 30 in use, and as you can see, dirt 30 is the texture in every mega tile in the area. Now, so first off is the rule of texturing. In an area, that's the whole area, not just the mega tile, you can only have 6 textures in use in one area. It doesn't matter, I mean, on this mega tile I could use all 6 on it, that's absolutely fine. but you cannot exceed 6 for the entire area. So when you get to the point of texturing your area, you want to be very careful with what you want. So first off, think of the environment. So if it's a rural kind of area, then obviously you're going to want a shade or two, or maybe 3 of grass, or maybe a shade, 2 shades of grass, and maybe 1 or 2 dirts, and then maybe 1 or 2 in rock, or if it's going to be streets, some cobble, that kind of thing. So when you come to your area and the type of environment it is, just think about what are the main textures in this area, and narrow it down on that list there. So what priority you want it to go in. Now in this area, it's in obviously it's a seaside destination, so clearly we have some rock. It is a somewhat rural setting, but it's very dry, very arid, quite a hot climate. Though rain is not unheard of. So my priorities are a couple of textures of rock, some grass, some dirt, and some cobble for the streets. So overall, 2 rock textures, that's 2. We'll go with a dirt, which is 3. We'll go with a grass, which is 4. But we'll take it from there. So in terms of varying textures, I don't think I'm going to be using too many, so I'm not going to run into any difficulty here, because I really am only counting 4 or 5 textures that I desperately need. I could have a 6th as a sort of a fine detail kind of texture. Now if you feel that you need more textures than you can actually get in your area, all is not lost. The colour option in terrain, let's go to that. Colour is also another means of indirectly texturing. It won't paint down a texture, but what you can do is you can say darken or lighten or give a tint to one of the textures that you've painted down, and it can, to many eyes, look like it's a completely different texture. So if you want, I don't know, you paint down some wood texture, for example. Say all this was wooden decking texture, which there is one. All this was wood. What we could do then is use the colour, and we could darken the wood in certain places as well. So I know maybe the wood's been burnt, or it's in the shadow and you want to emphasise a shadow. Things like that we can kind of pick up on later, because we will certainly be using colour. I mean, I always use colour in my areas, even if it's not just to try and make the textures look different, it's just to add that little extra detail piece, or you want to get some special appearance, that kind of thing. So what we'll do then, we will start with some rock. And if I recall in the previous video, I did smatter a texture down here, so I can actually show you how the selection is reacting. So I'm going to click on texturing now, and hover my cursor, we'll get the selection available here. So on most tiles it's saying dirt 30, but if I move the cursor down now, you can see in the selection box we now have dirt 30 and cliff number 4. So that shows you there the 2 textures that we have active. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to remove a texture wholesale from the area. Now you will always require a base texture in your area, and you may recall that when we create this area we change the base texture to this dirt number 30. Normally by default when you create a new exterior area it will be a grass texture. I can't remember the exact one, but by default it's always grass. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to swap this rocky texture that you can see in there for the dirt that we already have in place. So what I'll do is I'm going to go into the swapper, but first I will click on, now this is the tricky bit, kind of got to zoom in so you don't lose the option. Zoom in on that tile, so we've got the options in the selection there, the 2 textures, and I'm just going to go and click on cliff, and I'm going to swap it, and bear in mind that I want, if I read the dirt texture, it's TTGD dirt 30, so I'm going to hit swapper. Our cliff texture we want to get rid of is already there, and we want dirt 30, TTGD dirt 30, so there it is, and then hit replace, and we'll close, and now it's gone. So that way it just stops us adding unnecessary textures to the area list, because it's easy if you've been using a texture and you suddenly decide later I don't want it, and you kind of just leave it there and don't forget to swap it out. That can cause some problems, because all of a sudden you won't be able to paint more textures and you'll be wondering why. So if that does happen, you're just going to have to get your cursor and move megatile by megatile and check the list. And if you see a texture on the list that you don't want there, then you just need to dispose of it. But it looks like I only had it on that one tile because I can't see any others cropping up anywhere. Okay, so what we'll do now is we will select the rock texture that we want. I'm looking at the I'm looking for one that would look good in sort of an arid, dry kind of place. And obviously that one there does spring to mind, cliff number 2. So I think we'll give that a try, and it's very easy for us. If we want to move on and select something else, we can do. So we've got cliff number 2. And now we're going to look at the brush settings. So very similar to terrain forming, the size of the brush you want with presets small, medium, large and giant, and the pressure. Now the pressure is very important with texturing. If I were to say 100%, it will paint the texture at maximum intensity, so it's the clearest. It will appear through any neighbouring texture very strongly. So if I paint that down, that's a very strong texture you've got there, so it completely wipes out what's next door to it. So the pressure is the strength, the intensity of the texture. Now if I drop that to 50%, I'll just type it in and click down again, you can see that's kind of merged with the dirt on the ground. So when we get to things like high detail, that can be very useful, because if you just want subtle mergings of texture, you can get that very easily. So we're going to drop that now to 10%, which is sort of often my little high detail setting, and you hardly see that. There was a slight change, but you would have hardly seen it. I'll put another one down here, maybe you'll see it, but there we are. So that's one of the things we can do with textures. And obviously I want to get rid of those now, so like we did earlier, I just want to zoom into this spot just here, looking at the selection, and then we'll replace that with the dirt 30. Come too far, come back, there we are. I'm sure I put another one in around here somewhere, didn't I? Oh no, it was all on one mega tile. Hooray for me. Right then. So with our cliff texture now, we're going to start painting that on. And what we will do is we will begin with a full strength texture, 100%. And what we're going to do is start simply by just painting the sheerest faces. Impassable faces is normally how I sort of categorize it. If it's an impassable elevation, I'll just go straight in 100%, and then later on in fine detail we would add in, say, maybe a secondary texture and things like colour as well. So like a crevice, like a sharp crevice like that, which is almost like a right angle there, I might darken that, for example. So we've got that selected. My brush is quite large, because you can see they do stretch a little bit, so I am going to drop down the size of it to I think a 4 and a 4, and now we can paint it down like so. Don't worry when texturing if you slip over any little nooks and corners. For example, I envisage, yeah, it's run over the wall a bit there, not a problem. We can still tidy that up later. Now, when you're texturing, it can sometimes be a bit of a disheartening exercise. Well, it has been for me. Some of the textures look very different in the tool sets than they do in game. And when you're in that situation, the surefire way to find out if it does look as bad as you think it does or not, or if it's what you're looking for. What happened there is to load up the game and give it a spin, find out, and obviously if you're not happy with it then, that's a suggestion to change it round. But I know this texture in particular has a habit of looking a bit funny in the toolset. I've used it a few times, and on one occasion, I think it's the previous project I was doing, I was sort of making a sort of a deep valley, and I used this texture on the elevations, and I was doing the toolset and it was very off-putting, and I was thinking, no, I need to switch this out. Then I did actually load up the game, and it was actually pretty impressive, because what I didn't factor in was that the elevation area needed to have a certain tint, a reddish tint on it. So once I added that on, everything was fine. Now I don't know what causes this blackness to appear over the line. I have no idea what that's about. Very strange that is. Maybe I just need to reload the toolset or something. So what I'll do is I'll just stick to painting particular areas right now. So when texturing as well, obviously you can sort of hold. Oh dear, this isn't good, is it? I wonder if I should just get out of that a second and just have a look around here, find out what's going on. Let's see now. Very peculiar. Right, let's get rid of that. It's like we've corrupted it or something like that. It has happened to me before, and I did get round it. It's just trying to remember how I did that now. So it's I'm learning with you here. Let's try and replace that out and see now if we can get back to where we were. There we are. Oh dear. I've done a swap there, haven't I? Let's get the dirt back. Dirt number 30. Okay. Oh. Right. Let's get that off screen now. See if I can get back to where we were before. I think I've done it. We're about to find out. No, we haven't. Okay, that's a complete failure. Right, bear with me while I restart the toolset. Okay, I'm back, and the problem has been solved. A simple restart of the toolset fixed that. So if that does occur to you at any point in the future, and not knowing the other way around it, just restart your toolset, and everything should be dandy from there on. So I'm just continue applying my texture to the cliff sides now. And what I was going to try and show before that nasty little problem occurred was the way you paint the texture down. The mouse is very useful in the sort of sensitivity of how it's placed. So if I want to, a bit like using a paint program, I can just hold my finger down and move along like so. As you can see, it comes down nicely. But then say you want sort of like a scattered texture, maybe not just a whole sort of piece of it. What you can do is sort of very quickly, say if I go a small brush here and just click rapidly moving around, you can get that kind of effect like that. But obviously in this case I don't want to do that, so I'm just going to put this back to 4. And I'm doing sort of a mixture of clicking and just moving my cursor slowly around. Make sure there is fill, but yes, when I've got a large area to fill, I can just hold my finger down and just get all that painted in. And as you can see, it's just being applied to all the steep elevations. As you can see there, a little sort of flat piece there, so I'm just going to leave that, because what I may do later is put a bit of grass on that. So it's kind of a cue for me when I come to another texture that I want to put something down there. So I always try and only really paint what I desperately need done, because otherwise it's creating a bit more work for myself. We'll just get that bit in there. I'm sure other builders have some even better methods than I'm showing you here, which will be interesting to see. I think the module was called Candle Cove, I believe, and that's got some very nice seaside environments in it, so which I probably could only dream of making them look quite that good, but I'll try and find some information on that and link it in, because if you're making this kind of environment, I think there's a lot of wisdom to be taken from that project, because that's a particularly nice one. I mean, this is the first time I've ever made a sort of coastal environment, so even though I'm talking about how things work, I'm very much learning techniques for this kind of environment as I go along. I've obviously got some very stretched textures here, because as you can see, when you're moulding the terrain and you start to paint texture down, you can just see how stretched and distorted they can become. So that will require a bit of maintenance with the terrain editor later on. So it's not something I need to concern myself with right now. So that is what I'm really going to be doing for a little while now, is getting this in. And I don't want to bore people to death watching me paint this in. So I may cut things off at some point. But texturing is something you just keep having a go at it with your areas and that, and you'll eventually come up with methods and techniques of your own that work for you. I suppose there's no real wrong way of doing something, and if you get the result you want, it's absolutely fine. But I'm always interested in other ways of doing things, so if anyone wants to tell me I'm doing it all wrong, please do. As we know, it's been a while since I last did one of these videos. It's the way I tend to approach these videos is that I'm not looking to just put episodes out every week. One, it's something I would not be able to commit to that. And two, I'm not the sort of person who just wants to spout video after video out. If I've got something to show or something new, I'm quite keen to do it, but I'm not I'm not a YouTuber. I think the term is I'll just make something if I think it's relevant and informative, because otherwise I'll get too attached to making videos and I won't do any actual work. Then I'll just keep talking about my work, which I suppose people playing my stuff will probably get a bit annoyed with me for it's not putting anything out. But hopefully things are worth the wait. This should look pretty interesting when it's finished. Got quite a variety of elevation here, so some opportunities for a variety of texture to be used. Try and get the more sheer bits in. One way of often knowing where your more sheer elevations and things are is to get say your daytime night settings in use, using nighttime for example. Sometimes that can help illuminate, or even in daylight as well, we'll get to daylight, where your harsher parts of the terrain are. So if it's quite light, if it's coming up quite light sort of texture in the daytime, that really suggests it's a flat light-ish kind of spot and the sun's going to catch it. If it's quite dark, that suggests that it's a bit more of a sheer elevation, and sure enough it's kind of illuminated the factory there, but yeah, that's quite steep actually. So what I'm going to do is I'm trying to texture up the steeper parts of the cliff now, and leave the flatter parts, the more shiny parts in the sunlight, alone, and then we can use that for other textures later on, which I will show. We will get to that. It's not just going to be painting rocks down. I mean, we could probably do texturing over a few videos. So while during the downtime, a few people were asking, are there going to be more videos? It seemed that when I took a little time out from doing them, that was when everyone kind of jumped on my back and started asking for more, which is, obviously very, very nice things for people to say. But I will try and find a bit of a compromise between the amount I'm doing and what I'm actually showing that's useful. But I know I've been asked a few times, like, what is this project about? What's it for? And basically, what I do is, with a friend, we make story-based they're action games. Your standard sort of a P&P remake. So it's like a standard action adventure, and they're set in Middle Earth rather than sort of the realms sort of governed by D&D. And yeah, it very much is. It's like the tabletop game Merp, because Middle Earth roleplay was sort of converted using D&D style rules. And what we're doing is we kind of tend to adapt some of these adventures, or indeed add our own ones in. So we've made 2 large campaigns which are part of a trilogy story. Still trying to get the final one finished. That is getting quite a big project. It's going to be taking a bit of time. This project is an adaptation straight out of a pen and paper module for tabletop Merp, which stands for Middle Earth Role Playing, and it's a whole new story that we haven't done before. We've obviously changed a few things and added a few bits, but it's quite a small campaign. The intention, it's not meant to be a big sweeping one of the style we've been making before, because they're quite an ordeal, big campaigns. You really need to be invested in those, and of course we're invested, but my experience of making large sweeping campaigns is they take things out of me, and they really are mentally exhausting to do. So this is intended to be a small 10 to 20 hour game. It's envisaged standing on its own, and I suppose it involves pirates and sort of crime or law. Taking sides. There will be options in your your allegiance, or what do you serve, order or disorder. And we wanted a short game that covers 2 distinct paths of completion. There's we can say the law path, and I suppose in D&D terms the chaos path. There's law and chaos. Which one are you going to go with? Pirates obviously being chaos, law being the forces set out to put a stop to them. So at some point in this game, we'd expect the player to be presented with sort of the point of no return, the point where they need to kind of choose what they're going to do, who they're going to serve, I suppose. As you can see, you might be watching my work here. I'm not very good at talking and working at the same time, but I'm doing my best here. But yeah, that's what we wanted. That was the key thing to this campaign, because it does kind of mirror the pen and paper version of the story we're adapting. Is that the player can sort of decide at some point how they want to proceed, what they're going to do. So as a plot summary, suppose we'd be looking at the player character starts off as part of an expedition sent to deal with increased pirate activity in a certain location. Now, the reasons for them being on that journey I'm considering as being some sort of a background option, which we can then have referenced in game. So maybe you are, say, a convict perhaps. You've been sort of sentenced to serve, maybe as just a labourer on board the ship that takes you there, or maybe you are actually, part of a group or an armed group who actually, you're sort of in part of an institution, I suppose. So there's different backgrounds there, but something will happen on this voyage which throws the entire operation and grand scheme into disarray. Something that which we want to occur probably before the game starts, and that forces you to make some decisions, and ultimately that will lead towards, as you observe what's going on in terms of law and chaos, which one is going to fulfill you more. So maybe if you were part of this expedition against your will, you're going to think, well, actually there's a lot to be said for this pirating game, I'm going to give it a go myself. And or you can obviously resume your mission, which is to stop these pirates, be it with their surrender or them fleeing or all being killed. So we wanted a small but very reactive game with some choices in it, because although we've tried to put choice in previous projects and that, I've never been happy with the overall choice aspect in that, things you can do, because I think we've always gone for big, and I think sometimes small and concise wins over, I think. So I'd like to try that. So yeah, that's the sort of the gist of the story. A few adventures woven into it, and of course some interesting characters and some very interesting villains as well, because villains are one of my favourite points when I'm making campaigns and stories and things. It's you like to have a believable sort of strong villain. Never like the black and white good versus evil thing. It's I kind of grew out of that quite quickly, but certainly in games, if it's a story-based game, I like to be a bit more invested in things like that. So we've got a fair bit of rocking already. You can see in the sunlight it's going to be pretty shiny, isn't it? So we'll just keep painting that down. I'm probably running up on time here. I didn't want to go over half an hour too much, but I would certainly hope that we can quite rapidly get these texturing videos out in the open. So obviously I hope I explained what this project's about slightly quite well. I mean, up to what people think, if it's something that they'd be interested in playing. I mean, it would be a single player game, and looking around sort of levels 1 to 9, quite it's a low level experience. As it is a standalone game, it's not going to be part of some grand trilogy or anything like that, though of course if we wanted to further the story later on, we can do that with an open door. I mean, the ending is the ending. It's I've got a strong ending decided for it, but if I did want to pick up more piratey adventures, one day I could. But I hope it's something that might interest people in playing. It may be a challenging time for builders getting players, potentially. I mean, most people should know by now, the BioWare forums for the legacy games, that's Neverwinter Nights 1, Neverwinter Nights 2, and such, are going to be gone, which is a shame. I think some people are very, very upset about it, but I think it was an inevitability at some point. It's BioWare is not the BioWare it was all those years ago when it made Neverwinter Nights 1. I think that company, as we as we knew it is gone now, and they're more interested in making film simulators than video games, but each their own. Obviously that does reduce the areas for discussion and resource a little, but I'm sure the new Neverwinter Vault is up to the task, and of course there's Nexus mods as well, with still support for Neverwinter 2 there. And of course, do make use of these places, and I think the more discussion there is about Neverwinter Nights 1, Neverwinter Nights 2, that allows the community to keep going, keeps people interested and looking for new games. It obviously encourages the builders to have a stab at something new, another project, rather than going to pastures new. And who knows, maybe down the line some new technology might appear. I mean, at the moment it doesn't look too hopeful. There's been one or two games that have come out which they showed some promise, but then in terms of modding, what we really got was sort of level editors. Really, there wasn't much in the way. I think Sword Coast Legends was one of them I was particularly keen on when I was watching it, but then when I discovered it, it really wasn't much of an editor at all. I lost interest. So I'm going to continue texturing this little piece here, and then the next video what we'll look at is getting the next texture down, and we'll take it from there. I see no point in you watching me just text Cliff 2 to more bits and pieces. I think it's a bit dreary and you're probably sick of me talking as well. So I'm going to cut the video here, and then we'll pick up in the next video where we add the secondary texture. So see you all then. Thank you for watching.